My son thought he had won. While I lay unconscious on the operating table for open-heart surgery, he secretly sold the oceanfront estate in Montecito worth $6,700,000, the house that carried a lifetime of my memories and tears. He believed that forged signature was sophisticated enough to escape detection. He grew smug, pocketing the vast sum and beginning a new life in a lavish mansion of his own. But he forgot one thing. A house can change owners, but the land beneath it still belonged to me. He sold an empty shell. While the heart of the property, the land, remained firmly in my hands. I did not rage, nor did I rush to expose the betrayal. I chose silence. And then, at the housewarming party he hosted so triumphantly, when champagne glasses clinked under the glittering chandelier, when laughter still echoed through the crowded room, the police walked in. In their hands was the true gift from me, a gift that turned his celebration into an inescapable nightmare. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments what you're doing right now as you listen to this story. I wake. Light. Cold. Not the Montecito sun slipping through glass, not the gentle shimmer of the Pacific dancing on the waves. This is sterile white light, harsh, humming from the fluorescent bulb above my head. The acrid taste of iodine clings to my tongue. Air conditioning seeps through the thin paper gown, drilling straight into my skin. Surgical tape pulls at my flesh every time I try to breathe deeply. An IV pierces the vein in my left arm. My fingertips feel numb. The sound is not only beeping, beep, beep, beep. Somewhere, a ventilator wheezes. Rubber soles scrape against vinyl flooring. Plastic curtains swish, pulled back, then drawn closed. A face appears, my son, Logan, leaning over me, half lit by a shaft of light, half devoured by shadow. Then the doctor, kind eyes weighted with exhaustion, leans into view. You've just suffered a major heart attack. We performed an emergency bypass. You've been in recovery for 72 hours. The heart is stable now, but you must avoid stress. The words fall heavy, fragmented. I hear them without grasping fully. I am alive but feel like an outsider, watching my body run on wires and machines. Logan whispers, too loud for the stillness of the room. You scared us half to death, but don't worry, Dad. Everything's been taken care of. He places his phone face down, screen still glowing faint blue against the edge of my bed. His other hand smooths the blanket over me. Again and again, jittery, uneven, his eyes flick to the wall clock, the second hand ticking in sync with the beeps. Beside him, Vanessa grips my hand. Her ring presses deep, leaving a pale dent in my thin skin. Her voice drips sweet and steady, telling me I can finally rest, that the big house is only a burden now. But her eyes never meet mine. She inspects her nails for traces of sanitizer, then darts glances at her hard leather bag in the corner, where the edge of a folder peeks out paper marked with signatures. I am, or rather, I was a forensic auditor. 40 years spent combing through numbers, finding the lies buried in ledgers. Evelyn, my late wife, the woman I miss every day, was once a legal assistant. She used to whisper to me like a prayer, "Arthur, watch what people do, not what they say. Truth is always in the action." My mind flips open its ledger. One column for words, one column for deeds. Words. Everything's been taken care of. Deeds. Phone hidden, ring carving my skin, eyes avoiding mine. Red flags. Taken care of with what? With whom? With whose money? I close my eyes, feigning exhaustion, but behind my lids, I begin auditing my own family. And I know this sterile silence is not safety. It is only the stillness before the storm. 2 weeks later, they drove me home. Home. The word sounded different now. It had once been mine and Evelyn's, a cedar and glass house perched on the cliffs of Montecito. Every corner held a memory. Every window framed a view we had chosen together. As I stepped out of the car, the wind carried salt and sage into the air. I breathed deeply, hoping for comfort. But the moment I crossed the threshold, the smell of chlorine smothered the sage like someone had scrubbed the memories clean. The warm ocean sunlight outside was replaced by cold LED glare inside, reflecting harshly off blank panes of glass. That light turned cedar into plastic. Not home, only a house. Clean. Too clean. Fresh paint, disinfectant, emptiness. The gentle clutter of my life had vanished, replaced by sterile order. On the mantel, a square gap exposed where Evelyn's 3 figurines had stood. Her photo frame sat crooked. Books on the shelf were arranged by color, never my habit. An air purifier hummed. A red alarm light blinked, something we had never installed. Vanessa chirped. "We had the whole place cleaned. Doesn't it look so much better now?" She smiled, but her hand rubbed hard against the chair's armrest, releasing the sting of sanitizer. Her eyes dodged every mention of the big house. Logan was oddly silent. His thumb tapped the edge of his phone. His glance flicked once toward the driveway. His words came clipped. "I'll take that. Dad, just rest." No explanation. No elaboration. My fingers brushed a patch of unnaturally clean dust along the shelf's edge, a sign something old had been moved. Just then, Logan bent to lift a suitcase from the trunk. The leather clasp hadn't clicked shut. As he pulled it up, a single page slid free, turning slowly in the air before settling on the driveway. He didn't notice. I bent down, chest stitches straining with pain. The paper was stiff, dry, edges biting into my callus. An embossed logo caught the light. Subject: Final Appraisal, 1421 Channel Dr. Montecito. Timestamp: 3:20 a.m. At the bottom, $6,700,000. Air drained from my lungs. My head spun. Red flag. A final appraisal for whom? At that hour for what? That address was mine. I folded the page, slipped it into my pocket. Then I laid the first brick. Ask nothing. The second. Don't look too long. The third. Don't argue. My silence was a wall he could not see, but I had already begun to build it one brick at a time. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of the waves outside, once the lullaby that had carried me through decades, now struck my ears like the ticking of a countdown clock. I left the bed and quietly walked into the study. The house was dark, silent, broken only by the faint echo of my footsteps on the wooden floor. Sitting down at the computer, I switched on the screen. The blue glow washed away the night, casting my face in the same sterile light I had seen in the operating room. The cursor blinked a restless heartbeat. The modem lights flashed green. The CPU fan whispered. I typed. Waited. The screen loaded. A breath caught in my throat. The house appeared. Professional photographs, radiant beneath a Montecito sunset. The familiar backdrop of my life, now displayed as merchandise. And next to the image, the bold, merciless letters. Sold. Below it, close date. 3 days after my bypass surgery, the exact moment I lay unconscious on the operating table. My finger slipped from the mouse wheel. A sharp pain shot through the incision in my chest. Cold sweat traced down my spine. No scream, no sudden blaze of fury. Only an icy calm, the kind I used to feel right before unraveling a complex fraud. The rage was there, but compressed into something cold, sharp, and focused. My son, Logan, had sold my home out from under me while I fought for my life. This was no misunderstanding. It was a calculated betrayal. Step 1. Confirm through public records. Step 2. Verify the notarization. Step 3. Compare the signatures. I logged onto the Santa Barbara County Clerk Recorder's site, a system I knew as well as my own backyard. I entered the parcel number, a sequence etched in memory. The screen lit up. The deed transfer had been recorded. Recorded, 11:35 a.m. Instrument no, listed clearly. A notary acknowledgement with an embossed seal. Buyer. Sandpiper Holdings LLC. An anonymous shell, the kind used to shield wealthy names. I drew a long breath and scrolled further. Then I saw the signature. My name, Arthur Bennett. Shaky, uncertain strokes. The loop of the A left open. The downstroke of the B, weak, lacking weight. The baseline drifting off balance. This wasn't the hand of old age. It was the clumsy hand of an imitator. A power of attorney also appeared in the file. The date of signing matched exactly the moment I was wheeled through the steel doors of the operating room. A coincidence, too precise to be chance. That signature wasn't just forgery. It was contempt. It was Logan saying, "You're gone." But he was wrong. The betrayal was complete, but my investigation had only just begun. He thought he had closed a chapter. I was opening a case file. The truth never lives in words. It hides in the fine print, in the bottom right corner of a blurred PDF. I locked the latch and drew the curtains. The yellow desk lamp cut a thin line across the stack of documents. In the next room, I turned on the tap, letting the rush of water mask the line. The phone rested close to my mouth, speaker off. Not calling Logan. Direct confrontation was an amateur's move. I dialed the number etched into memory. 1 ring, 2 rings. Between them, static crackled in the receiver like sand against glass. Then, a familiar gravelly voice came through. "Michael Carr," I said calmly. "This is Arthur Bennett." A pause, then the warmth of 40 years of friendship flowed back. "Arthur, good to hear your voice. I heard about the surgery. You holding up?" "Dr. Samuel Park says I'm stable." I cut past the pleasantries. "I have a situation professional in nature." The warmth vanished, replaced by the sharp edge of a former FBI agent. "Talk." I reported, concise, indexed. Hospital, the phrase "everything's been handled," the appraisal, the county record, the forged signature. Silence stretched. I heard pages turn, a pen click once sharp. Finally Michael spoke, voice heavy as iron. "This is federal criminal, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, financial elder fraud. The list runs long. You were unconscious in surgery. To a prosecutor, this case is nearly airtight." "I know," I said. "Next step?" "No calls, no texts, no confrontation." His voice was a command. "From now on, silence is strategy. Frailty is cover. The house is a crime scene. You are the victim. Understood?" "I understand." "Good. Now we build a clean file. I need 6 months of bank statements. Every email and message with Logan and Vanessa. Most important, originals of the deed, the mortgage, permits, blueprints, any powers of attorney and notarized receipts still in your possession. Don't let him sniff it out. Don't leave a trace of movement." The words were harsh but true. Michael was framing the case, forcing me to face the raw truth. Logan had sold my house. In his mind, I was no longer the owner, just a guest, kept there out of kindness until he chose where to discard me. A memory stirred. Once, I uncovered the misaligned number. Michael turned it into an iron shackle no one could escape. We had been a perfect team. My skills hadn't vanished. They had only been sleeping. Step 1, lock the mouth. Step 2, lock the evidence. Step 3, lock the story. I was no longer a lost widower. I was a forensic auditor, and my son's life a ledger left wide open, waiting to be audited. I locked the study door and drew the curtains. The yellow desk lamp carved a thin slash across the bookshelf. The clock's tick clicked like a heartbeat. The distant surf pounded steadily against the cliffs, but what I heard most clearly was my own breathing. Each time the wind brushed the window frame, I stopped, listening down the hall. No footsteps. I continued. Behind a row of old accounting textbooks, where no one had ever looked, sat a fireproof safe. Logan had never known it existed. I turned the dial. Each notch snapped with a dry tack, then clack. The hinge sighed, releasing a secret locked away for years. The stitches in my chest pulled raw as I bent to pull the box out. Sweat stung at the edges of the bandage. A green metal box, edges scuffed, latch rusted. On the lid clung a yellowed paper label. Evelyn's graceful handwriting tilted slightly. Bennett Family Trust. My hands shook as I set the box on the desk. Evelyn had always said, "The truth lives in the fine print." I opened the lid, and her fine print began to arrange itself into a chessboard. Inside, everything was ordered with absolute precision. Stacks of blue legal folders, colored tabs jutting like mile markers, rusted paper clips, notary seals raised beneath the light. I followed the index, survey deed permits. Then I reached the thickest bundle. Its title page stood alone, falling onto the desk like the final chess piece. The Bennett Family Irrevocable Trust Agreement. I read for 2 hours. Every page was a move. Evelyn had built an entire legal fortress, a masterstroke. I lifted the phone, dialed the number in San Francisco. A professional female voice answered, Alexis Reed. Alexis, it's Uncle Arthur. I'm here, Uncle. I heard about the surgery. Are you all right? I'm fine. But I need you on the next flight to California. It's about the trust. Yes, I'll book the earliest flight tomorrow morning. By the following afternoon, Alexis was there. She draped her blazer over the chair, rolled her sleeves, and clicked her pen. Each page turned with a dry rustle. Outside, the waves kept their steady rhythm. She cross-checked documents, penciled notes in the margins, sometimes blew dust off the edges, occasionally whistled softly in admiration. Nearly 4 hours later, she looked up. Her eyes were sharp, but glittering with respect so much like Evelyn's it hurt to see. Alexis leaned forward, her voice just above a whisper. Your Aunt Evelyn was a fortress. Pause. Logan never sold your house. Pause. The fool only sold the shell. The pieces spun in my head. The waves seemed to recede. I still hadn't fit the picture together. The living room was no longer a living room. The slanting light of late afternoon cut through the glass doors, casting a long stripe across the oak table now buried under files. The shadows of printed letters on blue legal covers danced under the sundae. The distant crash of waves merged with the dry rustle of old paper, the steady click of Alexis's pen, and now and then the whir of the printer spitting out a final page. The air carried salt, aged paper, and old ink. This was no longer a cliffside house in Montecito. This was a war room. Alexis worked without pause. She had shed her blazer, rolled up her sleeves, set her legal pad aside. Each page turned with a dry rasp. Her fingers tapped the rhythm on every colored tab. Trust, deed, lease. She cross-checked, paused to whistle softly in recognition, then scribbled terse notes in the margin. Her eyes moved fast, sharp, with a precision that stabbed me with memories of Evelyn. Evelyn had once sat in this very spot, on late nights when I was asleep, surrounded by piles of documents I had dismissed as worry. I made the money. She built the walls that kept our world safe. I used to call it pessimism. Now I knew. It was strategy. Evelyn had been playing a long game, one she knew might someday pit her against an enemy inside her own family. 2 hours later, Alexis stopped. She held up 2 documents, one thick, one thin. Her eyes gleamed, her voice struck like steel. The miracle is here. She lifted the thick one. Exhibit A, the Bennett Family Irrevocable Trust Agreement. 30 years ago, when you and Aunt Evelyn bought this land, she didn't buy it the usual way. She had the trust and only the trust own this cliffside parcel, a multi-million-dollar piece of land locked inside the trust. You are only the lifetime beneficiary. That means you have the right to live here until your last day, but you have no right to sell the land. This is a steel vault. Evelyn built it to protect the core asset from creditors, from lawsuits, and even, she paused, eyes fixed on me, from family. My hand clutched the armrest. Evelyn, from the very start, had never allowed this land to fall into anyone else's hands. Alexis set the thick file down and raised the thinner one. Exhibit B, Deed of Trust, Structure. This is the deed for the physical building, the wood, the glass, the foundation. The house itself is worth about $2.8 million, and it was in your name. This is the paper Logan forged to sell. He sold the house, yes. But a house is only a structure. Without the land beneath, it is just an expensive shell of wood and glass floating loose. In that moment, I looked around the room. The cedar ceiling, the stone fireplace, the concrete foundation. For the first time, I saw them as separate from the ground, suspended, severed from their base. The house, What I had always thought inseparable from the land was nothing more than a shell. I whispered, "But the buyer paid $6.7 million. They wouldn't do that just for a structure." Alexis smiled, a thin, sharp smile, the smile of someone who had just won a case. "Exactly, and here comes the kill shot." She held up a third document. Exhibit C. Ground lease agreement. 99 years. This is the ground lease. The trust leased the land to you, as owner of the structure, for 100 years at $2 a year. It's a mechanism common in Century City for office towers, not a beach house in Montecito. Clause 7B is explicit. Any unauthorized transfer of the structure immediately voids the lease. The moment Logan forged your signature and filed the sale at the county, the ground lease terminated automatically. And once the lease is void, the house becomes an illegal encroachment on trust property. The room fell silent. Alexis's finger rested firmly on Clause 7B. Even the waves outside seemed to halt half a beat. I swallowed hard. "So, what does that mean?" She leaned back, the sunlight catching the triumph in her eyes. "It means Richard Cole just paid $6.7 million for a building he has no legal right to keep. He bought the view, but took home only the glass. He bought the painting, but ended up with only the frame." Her words hung in the air, ruthless but precise. I closed my eyes, letting the pieces fall into place. Evelyn had turned a losing script into a fortress. Alexis didn't stop. She sat at the table, opened her laptop, the printer whirring back to life. The living room became a courtroom. She typed fast, each line short, cold, surgical. Notice fraudulent conveyance and ground lease termination, 1421 Channel Dr. Montecito. 3 paragraphs. 1. Objective facts. The property was sold under a forged signature while I was unconscious in surgery. 3. Legal basis. Exhibits A, B, C. Clause 7, B. 4. Conclusion. Lease void. Structure deemed unlawful encroachment. 60-day notice to vacate. No exclamation, no accusation, only clauses and citations. Words like scalpels. The letter was printed on heavy cream legal stock. Certified delivery. Return receipt requested. A cold but inevitable move. The first move on the chessboard Evelyn had set long ago. I stood behind Alexis, watching each word appear. Every sentence was a calculated strike. This was no longer my home, this was a legal battlefield. And in my head, 3 sentences rang like a verdict. Evelyn was a fortress. Logan never sold the land. Richard Cole only bought the shell. 4 days later, the response came. Not a letter, but a phone call. Alexis's phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. She set it in the middle of the table and switched on the speaker. The line hummed a thin note. The air conditioner breathed steadily. Alexis tapped her pen twice against the oak tabletop. She stood straight, eyes fixed on the clock on the wall, waiting for the second hand. A male voice broke through, smooth and dripping with condescension. "Miss Reed, this is counsel for Mr. Richard Cole. We reviewed the so-called notice you sent. It's extortion. My client will not pay another cent, and if you persist, we'll respond accordingly." I heard the scoff in his breath, the rustle of papers, the deliberate exhale blasted into the receiver. Alexis waited exactly 1 tick of the clock. Then her voice came, flat, cold as a frozen lake. "This is a notice, not an offer. Your client has 62 days left to remove the structure trespassing on trust property. After that, the Bennett Family Trust will file suit for damages and remediation costs. Attached are medical records and a sworn affidavit from the cardiac surgeon. The only party extorting here is your client, who is sitting on property purchased through criminal means. Have a good day." She didn't wait for an answer. She clicked her pen once, scribbled 2 words in the margin of her notebook. "Proceed, damages," and hung up. Mr. Richard Cole, like my son, had made a fatal mistake. He underestimated us. While Alexis handled the civil front, Michael Carr and I focused on the criminal one. This was my arena. Through old contacts, Michael helped Alexis secure subpoenas for Logan's bank records. When the statements arrived, I spread them across the dining table. The desk lamp threw light down on them, post-its in 3 colors marking columns: inflows, debts, personal spending. On the first page, a line in red marker: wire in $6,700,000 the day of the surgery. My pulse slowed, sharper now. My finger stopped on that line. The smoking gun. I mapped the money trail. One branch toward debt repayment, one to the down payment on a Santa Monica estate, another funneled into Vanessa's personal account. The crime's architecture lit up like a blueprint. We built the case file for the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office. Alexis compiled. I analyzed. Michael framed the law. Exhibit 1. Side-by-side signatures, my authentic hand against the forgery, annotated loops and broken baselines. Exhibit 2. Flowchart of the money trail. Dates, hours, amounts. Exhibit 3. Medical affidavit from Dr. Samuel Park, confirming I was unconscious and incapacitated at the time of signing. Exhibit 4. Legal summary drafted by Michael. Fraudulent conveyance, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, financial elder abuse with statutory penalties. The binder grew past 100 pages, bound in blue legal cover, tabs crisp and color-coded. It was no longer just paperwork. It was a weapon. I watched Alexis clutch the binder as she left for the district attorney's office. There was no turning back. The gears of a much larger machine had begun to grind slow, steady, and aimed squarely at Logan. The following weeks stretched taut with silence. I played the role of the frail patient. Only brief calls. Logan. Dad, are you feeling better? Me. Recovering. Logan. Do you need anything? Me. No. Just rest. A soft cough. No talk of money. No talk of the house. No crack in the wall. I knew Logan and Vanessa were drunk on their golden cage, each bar welded from my money, and I was content to let them decorate it, while my silence tightened the snare around them. The waves broke steadily offshore. The porch timbers creaked each time the wind passed through. I sat in the wooden chair, my hand resting lightly over the scar, breathing slowly as I watched pelicans dive into the water. On the screen, my phone buzzed, flashing Logan Bennett's face. Third ring, I answered. Hello, Logan. My voice was thin as paper. How are you feeling, Dad? He asked, but didn't wait for an answer. His voice echoed, bouncing off flat walls in a wide, sparsely furnished room. The click of leather soles pivoted across the floor. Big news, Dad, like game-changing. I can't share details yet, but trust me, this is the pinnacle. Everything I've worked for is finally paying off. I could hear the smug smile spilling through the speaker. The house, paid with my money. Good, I replied softly. He pressed on, his enthusiasm forced, almost brittle. Not just good, Dad. This is a statement. Vanessa and I just bought a new place in Santa Monica, north of Montana. Home theater, infinity pool. It's a symbol of success. A statement, built on theft. I see, I murmured. You have to come see it, he insisted. Vanessa and I are hosting a housewarming in 2 weeks, Saturday. Close friends, business partners. You'll be the guest of honor. Guest of honor. He wanted to parade me like a prop on his counterfeit stage. This was no invitation. It was his final act of arrogance. I'm not sure, Logan. I let my voice trail. I'm not fully recovered. Nonsense, Dad. Fresh air will do you good. It's time you saw what I've accomplished. You'll be proud. I let silence pool across the line. Then I spoke. All right, son. I'll come to celebrate your achievement. He cheered triumphant. Perfect. I'll send a car for you. Then he hung up. The screen went dark, waves still rolling steady. I dialed another number, patched in a 3-way call. Alexis Reed and Michael Carr joined the line. I repeated the exchange verbatim: time, words, tone, a beat of silence. Then Michael spoke, clipped, tactical. That's the stage. Optics are perfect. Controlled space, clean containment. Alexis followed instantly, her voice sharp with procedure. I'll notify the DA. The warrant's already signed. All we need is time and place. We locked it down. Plainclothes officers would be stationed a few blocks away. Michael would enter first, signal with a harmless toast. I would attend, play my role, and become the still eye of the storm. The trap now had a date, an hour, a location. In 2 weeks, I would walk into a party meant to celebrate my son's triumph, knowing with certainty that by night's end, the lights, the champagne flutes, and the applause would turn into the stage of his collapse. He wanted the spotlight. I would bring the shadow. He wanted glory. I would bring silence. T-14 days. I practiced walking. I practiced breathing. Each morning, I stepped down the wooden stairs from the porch to the Montecito beach. The cold sand tightened between my bare toes. The distant rhythm of the surf beat like a steady heart that kept me upright. This had been my ritual with Evelyn for more than 30 years, a chapel, a refuge. I recorded it now like a final liturgy, even as I fought to hold on to it. T-2 days, Friday. The salt air shifted its scent. That's when I saw them. A spotless white truck bearing the Meridian Coast Development's logo pulled into the very spot where Logan once parked. 2 men in crisp polo shirts strode across the lawn, the same patch Evelyn had tended for years, with seagrass and native blooms. A steel tape hissed open with a sharp snap, the measuring line slithered across the grass. A third man, likely the foreman, tapped his stylus against a tablet, the sound clicking against the glass. I froze, breath locked in my chest, watching. The shadows of cedar posts sliced the grass into neat, ruler-straight lines. My knuckles whitened on the cane, my other hand pressed against the surgical scar. The bandage stung as I bent, holding still. The tape measure stretched across the exact spot where I once taught Logan to throw a baseball. It cut a line straight through memory, our summer barbecue pit, Evelyn's rose garden she had nurtured for decades. The sea wind carried back their fragments of sterile professional chatter. Infinity Edge Pool runs along this axis. Demo the old deck, keep the foundation temporary. Set boundary stakes per code. Hot tub goes in the rose garden, utilities in place. I did not move. I did not shout. I only recorded. They measured length. I measured error. They marked stakes. I marked time. I tallied rage in the debit column. I added silence to the credit side. The surf outside broke on the shoreline. My own wave was rising beyond the horizon, a legal tsunami, gathering force, waiting to crash down and sweep away every line and plan they thought secure. Nearly half an hour passed. Finally, the foreman lifted his head, tipped his chin, nodded lightly as if to a groundskeeper. I nodded back so slow it became an answer. In his eyes, I was only an old man. Let them think that. Let them believe they had already won. I turned and climbed the stairs. Cold sand clung, wood creaked beneath my steps. In my mind, 3 lines fell like a proclamation. I did not shout. I waited. I let the law speak. I knew this morning was the last true calm. The next time I looked upon the Montecito shore, the world would be different for Logan Bennett, and for the man who believed he had purchased my home. Peace was nearly spent. The black limousine slid quietly down north of Montana in Santa Monica, more a hearse than a car service. I sat inside and felt like a ghost being driven to my own funeral. When the car stopped, what faced me was not a home but a monument to money, a white cubic mass of glass and concrete clinging to the hillside, glaring cold and aggressive. The bass thumped through the windows long before we stopped, pounding into my chest like a manufactured hand. I chose my outfit like a prop, an old Navy suit from my retirement party 10 years earlier, the fabric softened by time, cuffs worn where they brushed the glass, a scuff on a button, my tie cocked half a centimeter. The cane tapped the floor, one soft thud, enough to announce I still existed. I looked like a breathing relic, exactly how they would see me. The young driver in his smart uniform helped me out. White-blue LED cut like a blade. The air changed. The ozone of the A divided by C. Metallic perfume on the tongue. champagne with a bitter edge. I stepped into a wall of noise, clinking crystal, high heels whispering on polished concrete. The house was packed with duplicates of a single type, glossy, sun-kissed, minimalist, and expensive. Smiles that bared enamel but never reached the eyes. Handshakes polished like template greetings. Their smiles brushed past me like stamped signatures, quick, clean, anonymous. By the floor-to-ceiling windows looking down on Los Angeles's glittering carpet, I saw them, Vanessa in a silver dress, a diamond blazing at her throat. She laughed, a brittle sound like glass, her pupils unmoving. Her fingers stroked the diamond chain as if taking inventory. Logan stood beside her, a champagne flute in one hand, gesturing with the other, his voice ricocheting in the empty room, his heels spinning. "That was my play identifying assets the market has asleep," he said, feigning modesty. "You have to break the old structures. My father, he waits. I act. A declaration. About theft." He saw me. A flicker of irritation crossed his face and was gone. The practiced smile returned, wide as a mask. He came over, his arm heavy across my shoulders. It was not warm, heavy like an imprint of possession. The fizz of alcohol breathed against my neck. I staggered half a step off balance. "My father," Logan announced, his voice carrying across the room. "The man who made all of this possible." Applause spread thin and brittle, like glass clinking. Eyes swept across, curiosity, pity, tangled with confusion. He squeezed my shoulder and lied smoothly. He taught me integrity. He inspired me to build my life. Each time he pronounced the word integrity, it sounded like a nail being driven into a hollow coffin. He led me around, introducing me to a tech billionaire, a film producer, a high-profile real estate broker. With every stone-cold handshake, he repeated the same tale that he was the dutiful son continuing his father's modest legacy. I played my part, weak smile, a puzzled nod. Inside, I posted debits, greed, deceit, credits, silence, evidence. The balance was closing. I saw the room as a ledger of ethics, full of people who mistook money for value, success for character. They lived in a handsome but fragile stage set, and I held the single card that could bring the whole thing down. He tapped his glass. The sound hung in the air, gathering attention, and I knew the moment was right in front of me. The chime of the spoon against crystal rang longer than it should have, and the crowded room fell silent. The music died. The air cooled by half a degree. Logan stood in the middle of the vast living room, Vanessa radiant beside him, her triumphant smile fixed like lacquer. He raised his glass, the perfect posture of a man convinced he had conquered the world. "My friends, thank you," Logan began, his voice polished, brimming with confidence. "They say success is a journey, but tonight," he paused, smiling smugly, "tonight, I allow myself to call it a destination." Laughter fizzed thinly across the crowd, rising like bubbles to the surface. He pressed on. "This house is more than a house. It is a symbol, of vision, of calculated risk, of bold moves." His eyes found me where I stood quietly beside a broad fig tree. He gestured for me to join him. I shook my head slightly, offering only a faint smile. He took it as his cue. "And I want to make a special toast," he declared, his voice heavy with false affection. "To my father, Arthur Bennett. He belongs to another era, an era of caution, of steady labor. He laid the foundation of integrity upon which I've built my career." A single word fell heavier than the rest. Integrity. "So to my father, and to the future." He lifted his glass high. The crowd echoed. "To the future." Glass met glass. White-blue LED lights carved sharp angles into every face. The 10-foot front doors swung open without a sound. Night air rushed in. Candles flickered. Bubbles and champagne, flutes stilled as though holding breath. The room shifted temperature. In the darkened doorway stood Michael Carr, dark suit, authority filling the space. Two men flanked him, badges glinting faintly at their belts. 3 slow steps forward. His voice needed no volume. "My name is Michael Carr, Federal Bureau of Investigation. His gaze locked on Logan. Logan Bennett? One question. One blade. The glass in my son's hand dipped. His smile cracked mid-curve, the right corner of his mouth twitching like a cramp. Excuse me, is there some mistake? This is a private party. Michael advanced a step. There is no mistake. 1. Aggravated forgery. 2. Elder financial abuse. California Penal Code. 368. 3. Federal wire fraud. Vanessa gasped, clutching her diamond necklace, rubbing the center stone as if counting beats. Her lipstick drained of color. Logan swallowed hard, his throat bobbing, eyes darting in panic. This is absurd. I love my father. He's right here. He flung an arm toward me, his voice breaking. A ripple spread half a step back from the guests. Phones raised halfway, waiting for legality to frame the moment. Controlled fear gleamed in their eyes, as though contagion hovered in the air. Click. Metal sealed reality shut. Somewhere, a glass slipped and tapped another, the thin sound scattering like a weary sigh. Vanessa broke into sobs as the cuffs closed on her wrist. Logan crumpled, the mask of the mogul collapsing, revealing only the cornered child. As they were led past the stunned guests, the room pivoted. Over 100 pairs of eyes left the spectacle of my son's fall and turned toward me, the old man in the worn suit, hands resting lightly on the head of his cane. I stood still, both hands on the cane. I did not blink. I did not smile. I did not weep. I only looked. The sterile white light returned not from a hospital ceiling this time, but from the chandeliers of a party. And in that silence, I saw only a quiet reckoning. A long equation, finally balanced. As the investigators escorted Logan and Vanessa outside, the red-blue patrol lights flashed across the glass walls of Santa Monica, washing the room in shifting colors. A ripple of whispers broke loose. Guests scrambled for coats and handbags, their eyes darting toward me, half reverence, half fear. A wave of half-steps backward spread through the crowd. A few phones froze at chest level, waiting for the law to define the scene. The ship was sinking, and they were rushing for the lifeboats. Through the tide of bodies, a flushed figure tore forward. Richard Cole, head of Meridian Coast Developments, the man who believed he owned this house. His face burned crimson, veins at his neck throbbing in time with the flashing lights. "Bennett!" he roared, snorting through his nose. The sound cut through every lingering whisper. "I have the deed. I paid 5.5. What the hell have you done with my house?" I tightened my grip on the cane, eyes never leaving his. My reply was one line, cold as steel. My son was just arrested for fraud tied to my property. A half step across, a shoulder angled in front of me, not touching, only shielding. Alexis Reed, counsel for the Bennett Family Trust. Her voice was calm by design. She produced a quarter-folded sheet, a copy of the notice already served. Richard Cole snatched it, his knuckles whitening as he clenched. 3 strokes of the blade. You bought the structure, not the land. The ground lease was voided by unlawful transfer. You are sitting on an illegal structure built on trust property. She tipped her chin toward the paper in his hand. 53 days. To remove a $2.8 million structure from a $6 million parcel. Good luck with the logistics. The red-blue light slashed his face in alternating bands, crimson rage, then ghostly pale. His bluster evaporated, replaced by the gape of a man who recognized disaster instantly. He was a businessman, he understood ledgers. I logged his arrogance under debts. The paper in his grip rattled audibly, snapping like dry twigs. Richard Cole stared down at the deed drained of power, as though at a paper snake stripped of venom. His fortune had just sunk to the bottom. The final blow had landed. The weeks after the party blurred into a fog of procedures and paperwork. A cold machine, grinding slow but steady, turned within sterile offices and silent courtrooms far from the stage in Santa Monica, north of Montana that night. Fluorescent lights washed skin to pallor. Rubber stamps pounded like mechanical heartbeats. The photocopier droned, white pages stacked into walls. The evidence was not just a smoking gun. It was an arsenal, Forged documents, wire transfers traced down to the hour, sworn affidavits from Dr. Samuel Park, and the brazen nakedness of the crime itself. There was no room left for defense. Before the jury, only one image remained: a son and his wife stealing from a father as he lay unconscious on the operating table. The prosecutor cut clean: organized forgery, financial elder fraud, federal wire fraud. The jurors nodded. The judge pronounced, "The court accepts the plea agreement. Defendant Logan Bennett, 10 years. Defendant Vanessa Bennett, 7 years." The gavel struck. They disappeared through a small side door. Logan's collar was wrinkled. Vanessa's eyes were hollow, her tissue shredded to fibers in her grip. When the gavel fell, they did not look at each other. Richard Cole, head of Meridian Coast Developments, was caught in the trap he had set for himself. Either burn millions to remove a house from the Montecito cliffs within 60 days, or swallow a catastrophic loss. The conference room was cold. The clock ticked too loudly. Across the table, a lawyer tapped his pen 3 times, then stopped. Alexis Reed held her ground, delivering 3 cuts of ice. "You bought the structure, not the land." The ground lease voided the moment of unlawful transfer. Final offer: $840,000. Remove it or accept. The second hand clicked forward. No one breathed. Richard signed, eyes fixed on the void between 2 pages. The pen rasped. A single number ended the most expensive dream of his life. The bank recovered most of the stolen funds. I received back the very money my son had taken. From that, $840,000 was used to buy back the structure. The printer whirred, the stamp thudded, the check slid across the table. I bought my home back with the very dollars that had once been stolen. The circle closed. 6 months later. The wooden porch in Montecito. The tide retreated, leaving salt pops against the rocks. My chair creaked beneath me. The scent of new paint had faded, giving way again to brine and old cedar. Alexis sat beside me, her glass of iced tea beating sweat. The rim left a single ring of water on the table. No second ring appeared. Her voice was soft, almost carried away by the wind. Aunt Evelyn was always one step ahead, wasn't she? I looked to the horizon where sea embraced sky. I thought of Logan in his concrete cell, of Richard Cole with a foreclosure notice taped to glass, and of the hollow mansion seized by the bank. I answered, "She didn't leave us money. She left us protection." That was the real legacy. My breath filled deep and clean, like the first true inhale in a year. Home, land, memory, balance. This story closes not with a trial, a sentence, or a settlement, but with a lesson about true legacy. Legacy is not measured by the wealth left behind, but by the protection, wisdom, and dignity preserved for the next generation. If today's story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe is the most powerful legacy a person can leave? And don't forget to subscribe, share this video with those who need to hear it, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Every comment and every share is part of the strength that allows us to keep telling meaningful, lasting stories. Thank you for staying with us until the end. We'll see you on the next journey.